everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Born Political. I'm happy to be here tonight. And I want to tell you about this next guest. It's somebody that I had met through some outreach programs we did. Now, everyone knows my affiliation with Community Speaks Out and the work we have been doing locally. But what a lot of people don't know is how many groups locally there are. We were invited into the Mystic Congregational Church. They're folks that had reached out to us early on in our beginning, in our journey. And they were one of the first groups to donate to Community Speaks Out. Back then it was $500, and that seemed like it was $1 million to us. And it wasn't the dollar amount, it was the fact that congregation reached out, saw the work we were doing, and contributed, and they never stopped. And what they have done in the past few years was gather, I'd say roughly there were 20 or 25 organizations that are doing wonderful, wonderful work in our community. The guest I have tonight is somebody I met there. I've heard of the group before I met her, but I think she's newer to it. But we're gonna get down to that. We're gonna figure out who she is and talk a little bit about what they do. And I hope you guys enjoyed tonight. But I want to welcome my guest. And I say I was gonna struggle. I was trying it today. It's Uduak. Enyiema, which is a beautiful name. Welcome to the show, Uduak.
Thank you.
Nice to have you. Nice to have you. So, and Born Political, like I said, is about your program and who you're working with now and the things you're doing. But a lot of this show has to do with who you are. We spend about 10 minutes to that, and then we start working into what you're doing and what the group's doing. So, because I think it's really important that people know, the people that got involved in the group and maybe why they did. Mm-hmm. Born Political is the easy start here. Is where were you born?
Yeah, I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And did you stay there? Did you stay there for a long time? Or
No. My father is Nigerian and my mother is American. So right after I was born, shortly after, my father took me back to his homeland, and that's where I was raised until my early teens when we migrated back to America.
So you're 1 year old. You don't remember anything about being in America, obviously.
Right.
And you go to grade school and up until just about high school in Nigeria, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, pretty much. Just about, I did all of my primary school there, which is grade school. So, and it wasn't in the city. I was raised more in the countryside or the village, like most people say.
And you'll laugh because I know surprisingly some facts about Nigeria because 4 years ago I found out I was 2% Nigerian. So
you're my brother.
Yeah, we're brother and sister, right?
Yep.
So I almost wore out my welcome with a few friends because I was so excited and telling everybody about my country and I told people that our main language is English, actually used in Nigeria. So you actually were being taught English. Do they teach other languages in Nigeria also?
Of course, yes. Yep. I'm from, my father is from Akwa Ibom State, and so, but a lot of people seem to think that, it is a different language. There's so many, thousands of languages, but the national language is English. So you're taught English, but when you go home, you have your own language or your own dialect that you speak.
Yeah. So you went to school, and did you have many brothers and sisters in school together?
Of course, we're all a huge family.
A big, huge family. That's
Yes.
good. And what are the schools like? You have the chance, and not many folks do, that went to schools in different countries.
Yeah.
Very few of us have. I've interviewed, I think, 39 people. I think you're the only second person that actually went to either elementary or high school out of country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is...
It's very, very different.
It is.
You're in uniforms, and I think now is a little bit, better, but you have to remember I was born in the 70s, so back then they still believe in like the switch.
Yeah.
And corporal punishment, and standing up and reciting everything, the teacher saying one thing, the students repeating, and the education system in third world countries, I have to say, it's incredible because you learn. They teach and you learn, and we sustain and maintain that education throughout the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I think it's a different, and obviously I hadn't been there, but I think we seem to take for granted sometimes the system that we have here. Right. And I think when you do that, and children and maybe even families do that, that it's just you forget that there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
And I think when you, like you said, if you're in a developing nation and you're saying, you know what, you know the path out of here or the path to a better life is to learn, you know, to have education behind you. You understand that, and maybe that's the difference, and that's what you see. I mean, maybe it's not the school itself, but it's the families that are sending you, mom
Yep.
and dad saying, make sure you study. I don't want to hear anything bad.
Exactly, exactly. Education is number one.
Yes.
And a lot of us that, come here, or, many people that come from other countries to America, one of the first things that people focus on is education.
Yeah.
Because that's what's ingrained in us. Education is number one.
So you're a 13-year-old young lady, and then the decision to move back to America, and not only is that a change culturally, but
yes.
for a young lady going from junior high to high school, that's an incredibly difficult switch.
Oh, yes.
You moved, and you came here to. Did you come to Connecticut at that point, or
Oh,
no?
no,
You're,
no.
We talked about this.
Yeah.
You went to.
Yeah, we lived in New York City for many, many years. I
Oh, you did? Okay.
I live currently in Massachusetts, but I work in Connecticut.
So, did you finish your school, your high school and stuff in?
Oh, yeah.
In what state?
Oh, in New York City.
In New York
Yeah.
City. Mm-hmm. So you are a world traveler already.
Oh,
Yeah. So just in the first couple minutes, I realized that you've been. For me, I made this enormous. I was born in Germany, which makes me sound worldly. But my dad was in the service, and I don't remember any part of it. I was a baby when I came here. But my big move was when my wife dragged me out of New London, my home, my little cubby hole, and brought me to Groton, which was.
okay.
Now, when I hear stories like yours, obviously my story seems insignificant, but to move from New London to Groton is a pretty big move if you're from this area. Most people laugh at it, but it's like this river that divided us, and our sports teams, our schools, we all love each other, but there's a very competitive edge here. So
Oh, wow.
I joke about it a lot, but I'm still a green and gold New London guy on the inside.
Okay.
But now my New London guy, I had last week on the show, he was questioning my green and gold and my spirit because I've lived here too long now.
Yeah.
I've left the city. So you've made these huge jumps, and you start school so you were probably in like 9th grade, 8th grade when you came in New York City. Now, how was that, like the transition of, now with no uniform, no
Yep.
like just different world?
It was difficult, but my parents, they did a lot of teaching when we're, coming back, what to expect, and as well as making sure that we don't forget what we're leaving and some of our traditions and some of the things that, we pass on to our children. So it was a tough transition, but it wasn't to the point to where I felt so lost, because I had a good connection at home, and I had, the support that I needed to make these transitions or be successful in integrating back into, what I left as a baby.
And when you came here, was there other family, or was it just your mom, your dad, and your sisters, or?
It was all of us, yeah. My mom, my dad, my sister, my brothers, my aunt. I have several aunts also.
Did you have any cousins that you got to go to school with, or was it pretty much just?
There were cousins that,
some cousins.
eventually joined us.
Because off air, I think, and I always ask this question because I think it's vitally important when I figure out, how you feel about the world and how you view it. And that's your order in which you were birthed. And I'm a middle child.
Oh.
But you said
I'm the oldest.
The oldest.
Yes.
And I call them the CEOs, or they think that, or like my brother, he thought he was the CEO, right? He's the boss. But there's a lot of pressure on the oldest child. I think, especially with an immigrant family, that, you're setting an example.
Yes.
For your, and I think that happens everywhere. I think even American kids feel the same pressure. But I think when you come in and it's a brand new school, you're not just showing that you can do it for yourself. You're kind of setting an example for, your brother, your sisters that came up behind you, and I don't think it's even spoken of, because I think you just do it, but it does shape the way that you look at life.
Yes, that's very true. You have to. I'm the role model for my siblings, and I care for my siblings because my parents have to go out and work. So back in New York City, where we lived in the Bronx, and we walk everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm, going before I stop at my school, I'm dropping my sister off at her school and my brothers off at their school, and then heading off to my school. And then when I leave school, I stop and pick them up, and we walk home.
Okay. What was the age difference? So you're like
Yep,
your
there are
sister's
5 years. There's a 5 year difference between me and my sister, and my brothers are a year apart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's a big. I mean, you're an adult sibling at that point.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, there's differences too. My brother and I are only like a year and 9 months apart. We're close. We're close enough where we each thought we were the boss, like, and that
Like we're
creates a
brothers.
situation that like. And then my little sister, who's 5 years younger than me, it's more like you're an uncle, because you're when you're a teenager and someone's 8, it's like okay,
Yeah.
you're a little kid, and I'll help you, I'll guide you through stuff, but it's just a different relationship, and I think it's important.
Yeah.
So you graduated high school in New York.
Yep.
And then did you go right to college or right to
Yep.
work or?
I went right into college. I have an associate's and I earned it in New York City in computer science. Then I moved to Massachusetts and I earned my bachelor's degree. And then from there, I had my master's. I got my master's in pastoral counseling and another master's in criminal justice.
Wow.
Yep.
You've done a lot of school.
Yeah, I love school.
You do?
You're always learning.
You know what? I think I like the school of hard knocks. Like all my lessons came the hard way. I'm like, I think there's a lot of things I probably could have learned in a class that would have helped me out. But I was a fidgety kid in school. I really didn't. I always wanted to be on the outside doing something with my hands. And everyone's different. That's what makes the world go round. But you graduated and you go to was a community college in New York, right in New
Yep.
York City. Mm-hmm. So you stayed close. You're still able to help the family out.
Right.
And then what made you go to Massachusetts?
Massachusetts.
Was it school that brought you there?
No, I got married.
You got married. Well, congratulations.
And
we
we
didn't even get to
moved.
talk about that yet. So
Yeah.
so will you graduate and your husband
Yeah.
where does he work? You guys you have this.
Yeah, we have a very mixed family. I'm no longer married to
Oh,
him.
yeah, okay, yep,
But yeah,
yep.
that's one of the reasons why we just decided that we didn't want to live in New York City, and at the time he's in the military, so he was stationed in Massachusetts, and we just decided to just move there. And I'm raised with knowing that I need to be in school. So that's one of the first things that I did once we decided that Massachusetts was where we're going to be, put myself right into school because that's what felt comfortable to me.
Yeah. And so I met you over the weekend, or over that it was a few weeks ago now, and which I thought was a wonderful event.
It was. It was
And
really
then
nice.
even and that church is always, to me, it's the if anyone has a chance and they haven't been to church in a long time, I'm not something that goes regularly, but we have gone to this church in particular every year because they do this event, and I think they're just very worldly. They talk about things that are current. I think they had the gentleman that was talking, I can't remember his name, but about the history of black gospel music,
Right.
which I learned a lot. I just thought it was just a different setting, and I just encourage everyone to just check it out because I just thought it was neat. But then I just assumed you were from Connecticut because you worked for Norwich,
Or for Thames River Community Service.
which is located
Which is
in Norwich.
located in Norwich, yes.
And so today I'm like, what part of Connecticut are you from, Uda? And you're like, well, I don't live in Connecticut. So it surprised me, and it's funny because we all assume that everybody wants to live as close to their job as possible. But off camera we talked about it, and you seem to like
I
that.
I prefer the commute. I love the transition from one place to another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think people talk about that a lot because we always assume that people hate it, or I said, why wouldn't you live in Groton? If you work at EB, just move to Groton. And I never considered that it might be that people like the 25 or 35-minute drive.
Yeah.
I just thought, everyone wants to be close. I'm the homer guy that doesn't want to leave anywhere. I think there's been some, other than my legislative duties, there's been some times where I think I hadn't left Groton in like 3 months or 4 months. And you start realizing, like, honey, maybe we need to go to a restaurant somewhere out of town or something. Make us feel like, no, it's funny because when you work that close, sometimes you're just there and time goes by and then you look and you haven't gone anywhere. It's just a different perspective. But so we know who you are. We know what you've done, but what are you doing? And today we're going to talk about your group, Thames River.
Yeah.
It's
Thames River
community.
Community Service, yeah.
Yeah, and what do you do?
And it's a transitional program, and we work with adult youths, and we work with them, those that are facing homelessness. So it's a population. I think it's a population that a lot of people tend to forget about. You know, they tend to, when you talk about homelessness, what comes to mind are adults,
Yeah.
like, you know, and what comes to mind is shelters and stuff like that. And they forget, and people forget that, you know, youth also, you know, experience homelessness. And we deal specifically with populations that are 18 years to 24-year-olds and their
Okay.
families. They have children of their own. And the agency came into existence, especially the family program, when there was a need or a rise of youth homelessness. And it was mostly women of color facing homelessness and having their own children, and at that age bracket.
Yeah.
So there was a need for this program to be put together. And so when the program started, that's what we were focusing on. But then we eventually moved to, instead of just women and their children, we moved to families. So
Okay.
now we have male head of households, we have female head of households, you know, all the mixes, we have it there. So as long as they're a family that's experiencing homelessness, then we go through our 211 network to get them in and placed within our transitional programs.
And so it seems, and it sounds. I think if somebody was listening out there, when you're targeting homelessness, not many groups are that narrow, where there's 18 to 24. But you know, it sound obviously any group it started for a reason, and that's why
Right.
that's what we had to talk about tonight, because I think people don't. There's also a stigma to me with younger homelessness. I think when people from the outside look and see a young healthy person, they just say, "Well, why? Why not? You didn't go away. You didn't come back. You're not a veteran. You're not older. You're not disabled. You're not." But there are other situations, and I think
Yeah.
my son had that problem. I called it the it's almost like the curse of normal, because if you look normal and it looks like everything should be going well for you, and you came from a decent family, that you should just be doing okay.
Right.
There's a lot of other things that are attached to homelessness that we know, but a
Exactly.
lot of it's mental health.
Yes.
I think, and people, and if you start off homeless, if a lot of people that are 18 to 24 experience homelessness as children,
As children, yes.
and so then the cycle continues, and I think that's what your group's trying to break. And well, how would they go about helping? So someone calls you and they're 18, and again, I think everyone thinks you're homeless. You call a homeless shelter.
Yeah.
What's different about, you know? I think maybe is it a skills based thing that you guys are working on? Or?
When they call in, they get assessed, and you know they're able to come into the program. We have the Thames River Family Program, and our building, we own our building, and we have 24 apartments. So we cater to, or we provide services for 24 families,
Wow.
and they live there. And you know, a lot of the stuff that we're doing with them is, you know, working case management. I have advocates on site that, you know, help them with employment readiness, getting them, you know, understanding what it means to actually lease or rent an apartment, working on their credit, because a lot of times, you know, in order to move into an apartment, they check your credit.
Yeah.
And if, you know, you have other things that has happened in your life and, you know, your credit is not correct, we're going to help you. We're going to help you figure some things out and maybe get you on the right path, so that your ultimate goal is to successfully complete the program and go into permanent housing. So
Yep.
it is very temporary.
Yeah, and so I think in the average suburban area, when I think of people, my friends, I ran the gamut. I grew up in the projects in London, and I had friends that were living by Ocean Beach. And I think what most people don't understand is if the parents, not that they don't want to teach your children about credit, it's just that they don't. Sometimes you're busy, you're working, you're busy just barely making it yourself. And I think there's sometimes shame when parents go, what am I going to do? Show this kid what's in nothing in my bank account?
Right.
How am I going to show him how to manage money if we don't have money? And you can still do that even if you're poor. You can still teach your children how to, and the
Budget.
value of credit and what the budget means. What I think most people, and especially I was a state legislator, the fact that you realize the difference in a person that has bad credit that's 18. And most people say, how could you have bad credit when you're 18? In my family, we've had multiple people where the parents used
The
the
kids'
kids' names
information.
and they
Yeah.
took car loans and whatever they did, they came in and had this bad credit. And now when they go to buy a car, the same car that somebody that the parents were very responsible or they didn't have that issue, they get a better loan payment.
Yeah.
So maybe they're paying an extra $40 a month for the same car. And now their insurance says, well, your credit's not as good. So the kid with a good credit pays a little bit less for the car insurance. And it's those, they say, it's that little cut, the little tiny cuts at a time that really create this big problem. And next thing you know, this person's spending 25% more for the same exact services and goods that they're getting. And that's what you're trying to address, I think,
Yeah.
in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And when you explain it that way, you can almost get angry when you see how the system's kind of rigged in a way. Because the insurance companies, I'd be in a room with them, and they say, well, bad credit is a huge indicator on if someone's going to get in a bad accident or not. All those things are true, probably. But I don't know how you can you're holding someone accountable that's 18 years old
Right.
for their bad credit. And there has to be a happy medium somewhere. So now they're in this home. Is this a long-term solution for some people, or you guys, they come in and you have 24 families? And I mean, is there a time limit how long they
Yeah,
can be there?
there is a time limit.
There
They
is.
have a year.
1 year.
I know, and it's not enough time, but it's the time that we're given based on the grants and the contracts that we have to
Okay.
work with these families, get them the skills that they need so that they can move on into permanent housing. So a lot of times it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for a very small amount of time, especially someone with kids
Yeah.
that has, other things. It's not just, me trying to figure out how to manage my money and, get a full-time job and, learn how to pay bills for the first time.
Yeah.
I have, daycare that I need to worry about and
Yeah.
stuff like other things like that, car insurance, buying a car, all these things that we have to help them learn before they leave our doors.
And what's amazing, it almost reminds me of the addiction issue that we deal with. Someone that's on the edge of death in a lot of different ways. That especially now with the fentanyl, that we finally get them somewhere they need to be, and it's 30 days.
Yeah.
It's like this person's been doing drugs for 6 years, and they're young, and they
not
don't.
enough.
And 30 days just doesn't seem like enough. I know how you feel, especially when you have this family that moves in. Today's February. On February 1st, they moved in, and your mind's already thinking about next January 31st when they have to move out.
Yeah.
And it's got to be. I feel it. I know we get this anxiety knowing that we have people out there that probably need more, and this is what we have, and this is where we're limited. And that's why I think the mental health. We hear all the politicians saying it. I said it a bunch of times, but mental health a lot of times, if we're going to solve the problem, comes down to funding programs like yours, where maybe it was an 18-month clock, because a year, everyone knows what is a year. It just goes so fast.
It does, and if you're working with people that have mental illness, it needs to take a little bit longer because you have to move
Yeah.
at the pace of the individual, where the individual can actually understand and really take in all the stuff that we're trying to give them as tools to use.
And now, is there like a waiting list to get in there, or are you guys full currently? Or?
We're always full, and
always full.
when you think of homelessness, there's no end per se. It's something that is continuous. It's something that our programs are always going to be needed because homelessness is very real and it's very current and it's a huge thing.
Yeah, and the mental health part of it, I think, and I hope people understand this. When we say someone has mental health issues and they're homeless, a lot of times I think the mental health part. Just think of how unhealthy you feel.
Right.
When you feel like you may not have a place to live in 5 months. When you feel like the mental health part of it to me is knowing that you have a good job. Like the mental health seems a lot better in a family member that I know that has a really, really good job and everything's going well and their bills are paid. That same person, if they lose their job and they're not quite sure where they're going to leave, where they're going to live the next year, all of a sudden their mental health is different. It doesn't mean that a switch went off in their head. Their circumstances changed.
Right.
And I think all of our mental health is really contingent on our situation.
Right.
You know, and although I think you guys do a wonderful job, it does seem like it's a sea. It's like you're dealing with the rising tide of the ocean, and how do you stop that? But it's one person at a time.
One person at a time, exactly. And I have to tell you, I mean, the team that we have is phenomenal
Yeah.
in working, especially with the 18 to 24 age bracket. It can be difficult because, you know, younger people tend to live in the moment
Yeah, they do.
of things. So, you know, you have to have patience. You have to have a love to want to teach someone something or provide a service,
Yeah.
be in service to these people. So we can't do what we do if we didn't have people that care so much about wanting to help and wanting to make a change, even in the littlest, smallest amount.
And I think if everyone reached out and did their little part, I think the heavy lifting is felt like when a small group like yours is holding up a region, and you feel the pressure. If other people reach out, there's ways to donate to you guys.
Yes.
There's
And
ways.
we have a website.
You have a website.
Yep.
I mean, the name is up there. You guys seen it up there a few times now. You can reach out. You can contact. If you have skills, are there opportunities where you could come in and help people budget or?
Yes. We are always looking for volunteers as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's important to mention that our board of directors are all skilled volunteers. They volunteer their time and their skills and their expertise to run this agency. So there's always a need for board members. There's always a need for volunteer mentors. You know, people that are retired, don't really know what to do with their time. Come on over, you know, lend us your skill, you know, pick a family to, you know, mentor, talk to, and stuff like that. Definitely get in contact with us. And we definitely have a need for anyone that has a passion to want to help and want to provide some kind of service to this age group.
That's what we found. Our volunteers come through, and oftentimes I think in our society, I think we've gotten used to going home and watching the news, and then maybe watching a couple shows at night, and then going to bed and get ready for work the next day. I go to meetings almost every single night because Community Speaks Out, or we're meeting with a family that's in crisis, and it actually keeps us going.
Yeah.
And I think if we had more people reaching out, I think we're just going to get in a better place. We only have 1 minute left because I told you this show goes fast.
It did.
Right? So I want to make sure I thank you for all the work that you guys are doing up there. And I want to invite you back, you know, if you guys, or anybody, and if you wanted to bring somebody that wanted to talk about how you guys affected or how they were affected, I think it's important for our community to know what you guys are doing. And I thank you for doing all the work that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me, and we will definitely come back, and I will bring someone else.
Okay, that would be awesome. We know who you are. We'll find out who your rescue group is.
Yes.
This was Born Political. Next week, I have Mayor Mike Passero. He's running for mayor over in New London. It'll be his third term if he gets a chance to serve in New London again. I hope that you guys tuned in for that one. Yuda, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed the interview. And anybody that wants to reach out, you saw her name, her contact. Give her a call. They can always use a hand. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.